Book of Heaven, Volume 27, November 10th, 1929. Only the little ones enter to live in the divine will. Example of the little boy. Difference between the creation of the universe and that of man. The divine fiat absorbs me completely within its light, and in order to give me its prime act of life, this light palpitates in my heart and makes me feel the heartbeat of its light, the heartbeat of its sanctity, of its beauty and creative power. And I feel my little soul like a sponge, all soaked in these divine heartbeats. And unable to contain it because of my littleness, and feeling itself burned by the scorching rays of the sun of the divine fiat, in spasm, it keeps repeating, "Fiat, fiat, have pity on my littleness. I feel I cannot contain your light. I am too little. So you yourself, form the void, make me larger, so I can contain more light, that I may not remain suffocated by this light, which it is not given to me to be able to embrace completely, so as to enclose it in my little soul." But while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus told me,
"My little daughter, courage. It is true that you are too little, but you must know that, in my divine fiat, only the little ones enter to live in its light. And at every act that these little ones do in my divine will, they suffocate their own, giving a sweet death to the human will, because in mine there is no room nor place to let it operate. The human volition has no reason nor right. It loses its value before a will, reason and right which are divine. It happens between the divine will and the human, as it could happen to a little boy, to whom, on his own, it seems he is able to say and capable of doing something. But if he is placed near someone who possesses all sciences and is skillful in the arts, the poor little one loses his value, remains mute, and is incapable of doing anything. And he remains fascinated and enchanted by the lovely speaking and fine operating of the scientist. My daughter, this is what happens. The little one without the great one feels he is something, but before the great one he feels more little than he is. More so before the height and immensity of my divine will. Now you must know that as many times as the soul operates in my divine will, she empties herself of her own and forms as many doors to let mine enter. It happens as to a house which could possess a sun inside. The more doors it has, the more rays come out through each door. Or to a piece metal which had holes and were placed in front of the sun. The more holes it has, the more each little hole is filled with light and possesses the ray of light. Such is the soul. The more acts she does in my divine will, the more entrances she gives it, in such a way as to become all irradiated by the light of my divine fiat.
After this, I was continuing my round in the creation, to follow the acts of the supreme fiat done in it. And my sweet Jesus added,
My daughter, there is great difference between the creation of the whole universe and the creation of man. In the first, there was our creative and preserving act, and after everything was ordered and harmonized, we added nothing else that was new. On the other hand, in the creation of man, there was not only the creative and preserving act, but the active act added to it, and of an activity ever new. And this, because man was created in our image and likeness, and since the Supreme Being is a new continued act, man too was to possess the new act of his Creator, which might resemble him in some way. Therefore, our active act of continuous novelty remained inside and outside of him, and by virtue of this, our active act, man can be and is always new in his thoughts, new in his words, new in his works. How many new things do not come out of mankind? And if man does not give his new act as continued, but at intervals, it is because he does not let himself be dominated by my divine will. How beautiful was the creation of man! There was our creative, preserving, and active act. We infused in him, as life, our divine will in his soul, and we created our love as blood of his soul. This is why we love him so much, because he is not only our work like all the rest of creation, but he possesses part of our life in a real way. We feel in him the life of our love. How not to love him? Who does not love one's own things? And if one did not love them, he would go against nature. Therefore, our love toward man gives of the incredible, but the reason is clear. We love him because he came out of us. He is our child and a birth from our very selves. And if man does not exchange his love with ours, if he does not surrender his will to us to keep ours, he is more than barbarous and cruel against his Creator and against himself, because, not recognizing his Creator and not loving him, he forms a maze of miseries, of weaknesses, inside and outside of himself, and he loses his true happiness. And by rejecting our divine will, he puts himself at a distance from his Creator. He destroys the principle of his creation, consuming the blood of our love in his soul, to let the poison of his human will flow in it. Therefore, until our will is recognized and forms its kingdom in the midst of creatures, man will always be a disordered being, and without the likeness of the one who created him.